Hello.
I'm Ryan.
I'm Jacques.
And together we are
Functionally literate.
Hey. We can read.
Sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes. Sometimes it's a struggle.
Sometimes it is a struggle.
Dune, man, I can't read that.
Oof.
It's hard.
Yeah, we're on Stephen King right now, and I'm going through The Stand, and dear God, oof, that one's tough to get through.
So today we are covering The Gunslinger, chapters 4 and 5. This will be our final episode discussing this book before we move on to The Drawing of the Three.
Mm-hmm.
That's not going to be what you guys hear in the next episode, but that is something that Jacques and I are going to cover after this. So, let's just jump into it, right?
Hell yeah.
Chapter 4, The Slow Mutants.
Mm-hmm. So at this point now, Roland and Jake have entered through the same crevice that they saw the man in black escape into after they've reached effectively the summit of this mountain, and they're all splashed in wet, and now they're in a cave system.
Yeah, so they're going down like this tunnel that's got a river, but it's not entirely a river. Like, it's implied that they can walk on dry ground. So it starts with Roland telling this story when they had made camp. They were in this river tunnel going through a mountain pass, and if I were to speculate, I would say that the only reason Roland told Jake this story was out of some kind of guilty nervousness. The narrative doesn't say that, but to me, that's the only thing this could be, because I don't see any reason he would be telling Jake this story otherwise. Like, especially like the way that he's talking. You know what I mean? Like, maybe you could speak more to that.
I mean, at the end of the last chapter, Jake is clearly a smart enough kid to kind of put things together and be like, there's a reason that Roland is keeping me here. Because he kind of understands, like, Roland's not the most empathetic person. And he even straight up, and he's like, hey, Man in Black killed me in a different time, and now you're going to kill me here.
Yeah.
And Roland takes a moment at the end of that last chapter and was like, should I tell him? And he's like, no, let me lie about this. Let me make sure that this kid doesn't really know what's going on here. He's like, no, you'll be all right.
Yeah.
And I think, it's that guilt for sure. Because, even at the last chapter, that separation, like you brought up last time, Ryan, of Roland being like, this is the boy. This is no longer Jake. This is the boy. And that separation, that distancing himself from it.
I think he's struggling with that.
Yeah.
Because here he's, like, babbling, basically, and Jake is largely disinterested. Like, he asks, like, maybe one thing. So Roland is talking about something called the Sowing Night Cotillion, which was a sort of courting ritual in the springtime. There would be food and dancing, and he was talking about how he saw his mother and Martin dancing. He emphasized this especially. He didn't say it, but it bothered him how he saw his father being cuckolded that night in front of everyone, basically.
Yeah.
And so when he finished, all Jake said was, I'm tired. And went to sleep. And so Roland rolls a smoke, and he just wondered to himself when they would see daylight again.
I wonder how many times Jake has had to hear Roland go on about this, and even Jake's all like, "Bro, I know you wanted to be in the threesome, but like, can we just get over this? Like, I get it, bro. Like, you missed out on your opportunity to bone your mom, and like, but like, get over it, dog.
Get over it."
So at this point too, Roland actually kind of goes into a little bit and talks about how his dad was, quote, the last Lord of Light.
Yeah, he was the man in charge.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know exactly what that means, being the Lord of Light. It doesn't sound quite like being a king, but it does sound like he was the authority.
Yeah.
He was the leader of New Canaan or Gilead or
whatever name they decide to name it that day.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it doesn't seem like that's how it was in the last chapter. It didn't seem like his father was like this king at this point. So
when he was 11, no.
No, I don't believe so. But at this point in his storytelling, his father has now risen to this state of power.
Yeah. So they traveled for 3, quote, days in the dark. They didn't really know how much time was passing. They'd pretty much lost all sense of time since there was no sunlight. So they would consider a day a period of waking and sleeping. Like, they would just go on until they were tired and then sleep. So it talks about how meals were thin, light was scarce, Roland has matches, but he's hesitant to use them because he doesn't want to run out of matches. So they're just traveling in the dark. And so on this third day before they went to sleep, Jake discovers a railroad. So from then on, they followed that, like with one foot on the rail as they walked. So they followed that for 4 days, saying nothing to each other. And then on the 4th day, they walked right into a handcart. Roland's chest slammed into it. Jake hit his head. And this is like a rare moment that Roland lights a match to look at Jake, and he's just like, "Are you all right?" And Jake's like, "I think so." And then they're looking at the thing that they hit, and Jake recognizes it for what it is, even though Roland doesn't. He's like, "That's a handcart." And he tries to kind of show Roland what's up with it. Like he can push down on the handrail a little bit, and it moves just a little bit, and it says, "Good, push again," or it tries to. Like the thing talks to them, which is so weird. And so they get on it, and Jake is excited, right? Like he says twice, "You'll have to get it started, but then we can push together." Like because like the fact that this thing exists excites him. And so they start to use it, and the cart just kept repeatedly saying, "Good, push again, good, push again." And Roland was like, "Okay, enough of that." And he felt around and he found a switch and he flips it, and then the thing says, "Goodbye, pal."
It's like finally finding the off switch on the Alexa. It's like, please stop talking to me.
Mercifully, it shut up. So then we get into the next subchapter. It says that the cart only spoke up twice more to advertise to them. The first time it suggested that they eat Crispala, and then it later said that nothing satisfies at the end of a hard day like Larchies. That's so funny.
It's just, it's incredible. I think Stephen King must have predicted the future or something. Or he's like, we're going to have these smart devices. They're going to be listening to us. And then just be all like, you know what? Maybe you should buy some potato chips. You ever think about that?
That's just so annoying. Like, could you imagine if your Alexa or whatever, like, just occasionally would just advertise to you?
Oh, that'd be the worst.
I wouldn't keep it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do it. No, thank you. No, I won't.
Exactly.
I won't do it.
Like Jeff Bezos, and the very rare chance you're listening to this, please don't.
Don't
do it.
So they're traveling with this handcart, and using the handcart seemed to return a sense of time to Roland. Like he certainly, at the very least, had a sense of distance while using the thing, and it made sleeping easier for him too, because now when he went to sleep, he was just bushed. You know, he didn't have to struggle to fall asleep. And so one day before they slept, Jake asks him about how he came of age. And Roland kind of corrects him and says that what he's asking about came before he actually came of age. Jake was just like, "I want to hear about when you fought your teacher." So Roland said, like, he starts kind of beating around the bush about this concept of coming of age. Like he said, "I once fought a not man and had him hung." And Jake didn't get what that meant. And Roland explained it was when you could feel someone but not see them. And Jake's like, "Oh, invisible." And Roland's like, "Do you say so?" He'd never heard of the word. And so he explained, yeah, there were folks that didn't want him to do it, but the man had acquired, quote, "a taste for rape." And he asked Jake what that was, and Jake said he did, and that he imagined an invisible man would probably be pretty good at rape.
Jesus.
And so Roland goes on to explain that 2 years after the invisible man, he left a girl he didn't want to leave. And Jake interrupts him and was like, "Sure you did. You got to catch up with that tower, am I right?" And this made Roland's cheeks flush. But he finally got on with the story. Also, some notable foreshadowing. The narrative says that Jake asked about Roland's youth the day before they were attacked by the slow mutants. So we get this flashback, which goes on for a bit, but the entire time you're aware, okay, when this flashback's over, there's going to be some action.
Yeah, there'll be some shenanigans.
The
Mutants
slow mutants.
Like, oh dear.
What are they?
What are the fast mutants? Do those exist? How terrifying.
Yeah.
Something that stood out to me in this subchapter too is that Jake is specifically aware, because he, Roland is dismissive at first, like, yeah, whatever, I don't want to talk about it. But then Jake says, I want to hear specifically of when you fought your teacher.
Yeah.
And at this point, that's not really been brought up, at least in the book itself. So it's like, okay, they're having conversations that Stephen King isn't necessarily letting us be privy to.
Right.
Within these, however long it's been that they've been walking in the dark and then now on this rail car just pumping away.
Well, the narrative is pretty good about conveying how much time is passing, right? Like in the last chapter, it talks about how, they traveled for a week. They traveled for 3 days through the desert. They traveled for a week up the mountain. It's also doing that here. Like they've been in this tunnel system for like, let's say a week, 8 or 9 days, They traveled for 3 days before they came across the handcart. They traveled for 4 days using the handcart. And then, so at this point, this is like day 7 or 8 of them being in this mountain pass. They've got to talk about something.
Yeah,
like the only time they don't actually talk is when the narrative specifically says, like as far as I'm concerned, the only time they're not actually talking is when the narrative specifically says 4 days passed and they didn't speak.
I think what brought that to my attention so much is that feels very unlike Stephen King, where he will explicitly describe everything that an individual talked about in order to make sure that the reader is as aware as possible. And this is one of the first times I feel like I've come across that in any of his writing, where it's like, oh, this is very obvious to me that they are having conversations that Stephen King doesn't feel the need to express to us, where it's like, okay, characters know things about one another that they discussed, when it's like he didn't need to explicitly say that. And I respect that. It really helps with the world building.
Yeah, it does. So we get into subchapter 4, which is basically about how young Roland discovered his mother's affair. And man, it's so scummy the way he finds out about it. He didn't want to know. That information was thrust on him. So this narrative starts by talking about how he's 14, how he hadn't been with a woman yet, but he still felt the urges, and that he was at present on his way to his room to go jerk off.
Yep. Thank you, King, for those details.
Certainly something a 14-year-old does.
Yeah, that's true.
So he's passing his mother's room when Martin steps out and said his mother wanted to speak with him. And it's like, he looks like a scumbag. He's wearing like tight pants and a button-up shirt that's unbuttoned like almost down to his navel. And he's got tousled hair. And it's like, all right, okay, tell us that he fucked without telling us that he fucked.
Yeah, that sounds like me when I was 20 and going out to the club. Dear God. Wow. Never realized I was such a douche. Christ. Whew.
So Roland steps into the room, and it was very clear to him that his mother did not want to speak with him. She was in a loose dressing gown that was like, not covering one shoulder, and she like looked embarrassed. She barely looked at him. She looked at him one time during this conversation. The conversation itself was unimportant. She was just asking after him and his friends. Martin clearly invited him in here to enrage him. And so there's this like little confrontation between him and Martin. Like he's basically telling Martin to show respect where respect is due. And Martin like clearly wants to do something, but he won't. And so when he leaves, he heard Martin slap his mother and told her to shut her quack, and then laughed. And so since the moment he stepped out of the room, it talks about how Roland is smiling, but it's clear that like this is like one of those dissonance of emotions. He's obviously enraged, but he can't help but smile while he's enraged. So what do you make of that whole interaction?
I mean, Roland tries to talk down to Martin.
Yeah.
And treat him as, well, the status that Martin actually has. But it's very in opposition of what Martin is wanting this interaction to be like.
Yeah.
And you can tell Martin is very, very upset about this.
Yeah.
But he doesn't really do anything to Roland necessarily to his face at this point.
Instead, he takes it out on his mother.
Yeah, and in a way, he's already done everything that he needs to Roland indirectly by demonstrating, being all like, hey, I know you got your weird mommy kink, but like, hey, guess what I did?
I fucked your mom.
Exactly.
So the next subchapter is about Roland going to his teacher to tell him that he's ready to take his test.
Mm-hmm.
So this next subchapter was about Roland going to his teacher to tell him, like, I'm ready to take my test. So he's on his way to Court's place. His friend Jamie is, like, running up to him to tell him news about, like, the war or something. And when he took one look at Roland, he didn't say any of that because he could see the look on his friend's face and he knew what was happening right now, which was Roland was gonna go take his test. And so then he ran off to go tell their friends Cuthbert, Thomas, and Elaine. So Roland fucking barges into Court's house and kicks his kitchen table.
Yeah.
Like, just fucking punts that shit. And he's like, Court, come out here. Court didn't immediately come out. And then he speaks in the high speech, like telling Court again to come out because he knew that if he tried to go into Court's bedroom, his neck would probably get snapped. And he wasn't about that life. So Court comes out and he's like, Court comes out and he says, you will teach me no longer. Today I will teach you. And Court's just like, you're too early. You're like 2 years too early at least. But Roland's not having it. He's like, no, I will take my test today. And so Court could see how serious he was. And he's like, okay, I'm going to give you one chance to reconsider. Cry off. And Roland would not. And this is what I thought was interesting. And this is where we see, I think, kind of what you were talking about in the last episode, right? Like, Court is clearly putting on some type of airs in his interaction with these kids that he's training up to become gunslingers. He tells Roland here, I'm gonna break my promise and I'm gonna give you another chance to cry off. Like, this is too soon.
Yeah.
You will fail and you will be exiled.
Yeah.
And Roland's like, no, I'm doing it. I'm doing it. And Court tells Roland to meet him in the courtyard in an hour. And he asked Roland what his weapon would be. And Roland wisely did not say. Yeah, so this was a pretty ballsy move on Roland's part. Because it doesn't outright say it, but what's happening here is if he passes this test, he becomes a gunslinger. If he fails, he is exiled.
Yep.
He'll be sent west. He'll never see his friends or family again. And Roland is like, I know what exile means.
He's very aware of what his consequences will be if he fails here.
He knows exactly what he's doing.
But to roughly quote it, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned, but hell hath no more fury than a wannabe motherfucker scorned.
God damn it.
So Roland's pissed. Roland's pissed. He's like, yo.
No one fucks my mother but my daddy and me.
Yeah, I think he's very aware of what's going to occur if he fails in this, which is why, like you said, he's wise enough to not tell Court what's up. Because I think he's aware, too, being like, well, yeah, I'm 2 years early, so if I tell him what I'm going to be using, he's going to be expecting that, and it's a strong likelihood that I will lose this fight.
Yeah. So the next subchapter is about him going to get his weapon. His weapon was what, Jacques?
One of his best friends, David the Hawk.
David the Hawk, who was old now. He was staying in a barn. Roland had befriended David well enough that he perched on his arm when the arm was offered and accepted pets. And so he's talking to the Hawk. He says that he believes that he will die this day, and that on this day each year he would shoot the sky in his memory. David, naturally, did not care about this. He was a hawk.
Probably just went,
yeah.
And that's the best he got.
Yeah. So then we get into subchapter 7, which is the first half of Roland's fight, this test to become a gunslinger. So he goes into the courtyard from the west entrance. And it talks about how if he got Court's stick away from him, he would exit through the east entrance as a man. If he failed, he would exit back the way he came, beaten and bloody and forever a boy. So normally for a test like this, the courtyard would have like a ton of spectators. It would have been advertised way ahead of time. But this was very sudden.
Mm-hmm.
So the only spectators on this day were Roland's friends. Cuthbert, Elaine, Thomas, and Jamie.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes in there, and Court's like, what's your weapon? And Roland's like, my weapon is David. And Court pauses like, what? And then the test starts, and Roland takes off the hawk's blind, and that's when Court understands what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, you're a fool. And this pisses Roland off. Like, how dare he? I'm not a fool. And so Roland launches David at Court's face.
Mm-hmm.
David starts ripping at his face. So Court beats his own face with his stick 3 times to beat this thing off.
Yeah.
And it works. But now his bad eye is dangling from the socket.
Mm-hmm.
And so Roland takes this opportunity to run at Court and kick him in the side of the head, but Court didn't fall down.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, going at Roland. And so in this moment, David, he's still alive. He's ripping and tearing at Roland. And so, like, with really only one option left with this big-ass man coming at him, he just throws this wounded hawk at him.
Like, it's the most scrappy fight, I imagine, that is what it would look like. Just like this small child trying to beat up like a full-grown man with a bird.
With
like,
a bird.
What?
And so we get into subchapter 8, which is the rest of this fight. It was very bloody.
Mm-hmm.
Court falls on top of Roland with the bird in between them. He's trying to gouge out an eye and knee Roland in the crotch. Roland was able to evade both of these attacks. David kept ripping up Court's face, like slashed open his cheeks, ripped off an ear. It was just an ear hole. And so Roland, he manages to get Court's stick away from him and claim it for himself. And so now, like, it's cool the way it frames it. So now Roland is standing on the east side and Court is standing on the west side. And Roland has this stick, an ironwood stick. And so Court runs at him. He makes a feint, but it was a bad one. Like the narrative describes it as Court knew it was pointless, and Roland could tell like that this was just a futile attempt to trick him. So he ignores the feint and whacks Court on top of the head.
Yep.
And so he's pointing this stick at Court, and he's like, yield or die. Court yields. And he's like, now I sleep. And Roland's like, nuh-uh, I want that key. Give me that key. And he's like, no, is your need that great? And Roland's like, yes, it is. I need that key. He wants to go to where the apprentice guns are kept. They're not great guns, but they are his right now that he has passed his test and now that he is officially an apprentice gunslinger.
And he even highlights, he's like, yeah, it's not going to be as good as my father's guns, which at this point we suddenly get some fun insight into the description from the very beginning of this book where it describes the guns in excruciating detail.
The ironwood grips.
Exactly. We get that exact same description of his father's guns at this point.
Wait, no, I'm sorry, not ironwood grips.
Sandalwood.
Sandalwood grips.
Yep, the sandalwood grips. And it's like, oh, okay, that's cool. But Roland's like, I understand it's not going to be as good, but they are guns. And that's what I need right now.
I need guns so I can go and shoot Martin in his stupid face. And so when he tells Court that his need is great, Court gives him some interesting advice. Like, he seems to understand, without them actually discussing it, why Roland demanded to take his test so early. And so he suggested that Roland hold off and let word spread of what he'd done that day, because he was now officially the youngest kid to become a gunslinger. The youngest gunslinger before Roland was his father before him. His father passed his test at 16. No one had ever passed their test at 14. So Court says to him, let this legend spread. Eventually, the magic of the legend may work its magic on a certain magician, if you get my meaning.
Yeah, he even says explicitly, given time, words may even enchant an enchanter.
Yeah.
I'm like, damn, okay, that is... Like, Court's not thick, you know. I think he obviously truly cares about these kids and understands what's going on in regards to the kingdom. So he gets like, yeah, Martin,
fuck that guy.
He's boning some moms, bro. And like, like that's not good for the kingdom here. So maybe hold off on the murking of the mommy fuckers, but like just let him understand that he's going to be in hot shit.
Yeah. So Roland understands. I don't think he verbally agrees, but his actions after this are, you know, he listens to Court's final piece of advice as his teacher. And then he says, I'm going to go down to the brothel and let them know that you're not going to be coming today. I might fuck a prostitute or two myself, actually.
Which is just such a unique thing to bring up.
Well, so we didn't get into it, but the narrative does talk about the fact that Court will nap in the middle of the day, so he'll have the energy to go to the brothel at night.
Yes.
And so, like, Roland knows this.
Yeah.
And decides to say, like, hey, don't worry. I'll keep their beds warm.
Yeah.
I got it. I got this.
I got you, homie.
I got you, man. And so he tells a couple of his friends to go and get 2 nurses for Court. And then he and Cuthbert go and bury David.
Mm-hmm.
And then he goes and has sex for the first time with a prostitute.
Doesn't matter, had sex, I guess. I don't know. That's the vibe, I suppose.
I wonder if this is just like something that he had already decided, like something that he always told himself. One day, when I become a gunslinger, I'm gonna go get laid that night.
When I beat the shit out of Court, I'm gonna go and bone his girl too, just to make myself feel better. And be like, yeah, I'm a maggot. How does it feel now?
How does it feel? How's it feel? Got no ear. Got no eye. What you gonna do now? You barely got any cheeks left.
Something that I thought was intriguing is that there's a lot of biblical references in the entirety of this book. And the fact that Roland is challenging Court in this very unfair battle, and his tool is David. Yeah. I was like, I wonder if King was intending that to kind of be that biblical reference of like David and Goliath. Is that why he decided to name the bird specifically David?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he does reference the Bible a lot.
Mm-hmm. And even that this is New Canaan. Mm-hmm. So I wonder if Roland was even conscious of that information, kind of going into it. And maybe he, albeit, even his dad roasted the shit out of him and is like, yeah, you're kind of slow, bro. So maybe he didn't pick up on that.
I just love that his weapon was David. What is your weapon?
It's a bird.
My weapon is David.
I think at the beginning of this subchapter, even Cuthbert is all like, bro, what the fuck? Like, you didn't, where's your weapon? Like, are you stupid?
I have my weapon.
It's a bird.
It's a bird.
What a Chad move, though. Like, I don't know if I'd feel like the person going up against me is an idiot or a genius. Like, you brought a hawk. Okay, I respect, like, ballsy move.
Yeah, and poor David.
Yeah, he gets his back broken, I think, and that's the final thing.
Yeah,
like that's
even with a broken back, he still had his mouth hooked into Court.
Yep, and I think that's what, after breaking David's back, that's what eventually led to his ear being torn off.
Yeah,
and just like, damn, what a real one.
So we get into subchapter 9. The flashback is over. Roland has finished telling his story to Jake, and he asks Jake if he understood the story. Jake was like, understood it? It was a game. I think he was talking about what Martin did. Mm-hmm. And so he asks Roland if men ever grow up or if they just simply come of age. Mm-hmm. And so Roland's like, you don't know everything. And Jake's like, maybe not, but I know what I am to you. What's that? A poker chip. And I think that Jake's accusation was spot on because the narrative says that it made Roland want to grab a rock and beat his head in. Mm-hmm. Instead, he just told Jake, go to sleep. Also, a fun fact that we get in this part. So we learned that Jake has The Shining. Have you read that book yet?
I have, yeah. Okay. No, I have indeed read The Shining.
So Roland calls it The Touch. And he says that Jake reminds him of his friend Elaine, who had the touch when they were kids. But he's talking about The Shine.
This is in the subchapter that we're just going over.
Subchapter 9.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my god, yeah, it's right at the beginning. The half telepathy. Yeah, I completely missed that then, and that's in the very first paragraph itself, where it says, quote, he'd already realized this was an extremely perceptive boy, not so different from Elaine, who was strong in that half empathy, half telepathy they called the touch.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Isn't it?
Yeah, that Stephen King must have already been like, yeah, let's just start interweaving all of these parts from my other novels into this kind of mega novel that he's interested in writing this like very long series.
Isn't that cool?
That is super cool.
Yeah. So then we get into subchapter 10, which is how the duo were attacked by the slow mutants. So this subchapter was just packed full of action.
Mm-hmm.
This is the most action that we get in this subchapter.
Mm-hmm.
So the slow mutants, they kind of remind me of the ghouls from the Fallout games, only like creepier. So they're described as having glowing skin, glowing eyes that are way too big, and having like tentacles for arms.
Mm-hmm.
So they passed a few by and naturally scared the shit out of Jake. He's like, what are those? And Roland's like, they're slow mutants. And he told them that they were unlikely to attack. They're probably just as scared of us as we are of them. And like pretty much immediately after he says that, one of the mutants tries to rip Jake off the handcart. So Roland was able to pull him back up and he starts firing at them. But they were too resilient. Like he shot one in the eye and it stubbornly kept going. And for a moment they seemed to get away. But ahead, the mutants had put rocks on the tracks. And so they came to a stop. They weren't big rocks, but they were big enough to stop the cart. So he tells Jake, you got to get these rocks off of the tracks. And Jake's like, I can't. And Roland's like, you have to. I have to shoot them. I can't defend you and get the rocks off of the rails. So they're like kind of working together here. Like he's killing the mutants. Jake's getting the rocks off. One of the mutants is like gets right up in Jake's face. He shoots it, but the narrative emphasizes how close he was to accidentally shooting Jake's head.
Yeah.
Like the problem is that they're in the dark. The only light is coming from the mutants themselves and the flash from his guns. So he's just getting these after images in his eyes, making it harder for him to shoot. It's crazy. And meanwhile, layered through this entire fight is Roland thinking, this is it. This is me sacrificing Jake. This is how Jake's gonna die. And he's just like, no, the boy won't die here. And they get away. They get away.
I think at one point, one actually gets a hold of Jake.
Yeah.
And Roland ends up killing that one. And Jake looks over at Roland and even says to him, I thought you were gonna give me up. And Roland, he just says nothing and continues on with his onslaught.
Yeah.
But understands in his head, he's like, this is not going to be the end for the boy.
And so we briefly spoke of this before the episode started. You said you were a particular fan of the next subchapter.
Truly is the most in-depth subchapter in existence.
So in 4.11, what happens?
Quote, they went on for 3 days without incident.
The end.
And that's it. Like, thank you. Thank you, Stephen King.
Thanks for that. 3 days passed. So then we get into subchapter 12, which I thought was interesting because they come across, I mean, Jake really puts it best, a subway station. They, on the 4th day after their encounter with the slow mutants, they round a bend and they see a pinprick of light in the distance. About 5 miles later, they find a place that to Jake, I mean, it looks like a subway station. And Roland's like, what's that? And he's like, I don't know. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. And so they, like, just before they go in, Roland sees a sign covered in various languages, and one of them, remarkably, was in a root of the high speech, so he could read it. It said, track 10 to surface and points west. So in the station itself, there were an assortment of abandoned booths.
Mm-hmm.
One was a weapon shop, where Roland obtained a bow and arrows, though both were of poor quality. There were guns, but they were filled with concrete. And I guess there weren't any bullets for his guns.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it excited him, but there wasn't anything there. And there was, like, a bunch of booths. Like, there was, like, a clothing booth, and there was, I think, a perfume booth, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jake finds a mummy in a blue uniform. And it had a newspaper, and when they touched it, it would crumble anywhere they touched it. And then pretty soon they found, like, dozens more mummies like the first one.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them were wearing these blue suits with, like, a gold accent to them. Roland said that one of his old teachers, Vanet, spoke of old days where people made a gas that could do this to people.
Mm-hmm.
And in his mind, he speculates that maybe this subway station was important for some war effort, which depressed him. And so finally he's like, okay, it's time to leave. And then Jake gets upset again, saying that he knew he was going to die soon. He said he'd take his chances on his own. And Roland's like, okay, Jake. And so he gets on the handcart and starts to leave. And he hates himself for it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he thinks to himself how easily you bluff this young boy. Again and again, his wonderful intuition, his touch, has led him to this point. And again, you have led him on past it. And how difficult could it be? After all, he has no friends but you.
Mm-hmm.
And it occurred to him, before Jake crumbled and jumped back on the handcart, that he could give up the tower for a time and raise Jake until he was old enough for them to both easily confront the Man in Black. Mm-hmm. But then reality came back to him, and he knew they couldn't go back because they'd have to go back through the slow mutants, and likely they would die.
Yeah.
I mean, and even then, they couldn't cross the desert again. Like, they would have to just live on the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
The narrative doesn't say that, but that would have been the reality.
Mm-hmm.
There was no way that Roland could cross back over that desert. I mean, for God's sake, he got heat stroke.
Yeah.
You know, and the narrative doesn't talk about this, but the nature of heat stroke, if you get it once, your heat tolerance goes way down.
Good
and
point.
It becomes way easier to get a heat stroke again. There's no fucking way Roland's going through a desert like that ever again and surviving it. So, yeah, reality reasserts itself, and he's like, no, I know what I have to do. I have to get to the Man in Black, whether I do it with Jake or not, whatever. Jake jumps back on before Roland starts moving too quickly. And that's the end of that subchapter. Mm-hmm. And then we get the sad one.
Yeah.
This is the last subchapter of chapter 4, and it sucks.
It does.
So, this is when the Gunslinger sacrifices the boy so he can get to the Man in Black.
Yep.
So, it describes a loud river, like, below them. Mm-hmm. Maybe the same one as before, I don't know. But it's below them, and it's very loud, and Roland decides to let Jake take over the cart for a little while so he can use his bow and arrow to determine how far away it was. He attached a string to an arrow, shot it off. He did that a few times, and before he finally got one that landed in the water. He figured maybe it was 60 yards, but he didn't tell Jake that. Like, he just kind of shrugged. And I think the logic was, well, this bow and arrow sucks, so I can't accurately gauge it, but he thinks maybe 60 yards.
Still quite a distance, though.
Yeah. So 3 days after the station, they see light again. Not sunlight. They were in a tunnel with some weird phosphorescent rock. That's a direct quote. Jake said that they were fossils, but Roland thought he said fossils. He clearly doesn't know what a fossil is.
Nope.
So the tunnel was amplifying the sound of the river. So it was just very loud in there. And then for some reason, Jake just gets a bug up his butt. I don't know. He just demands that Roland stop. So Roland lets go of the handcart, and it eases to a stop. And then they walk forward some on foot, and they see that the track kept going beyond the tunnel over total darkness.
Yeah.
The river was still below them, but they were no longer in a tunnel. There was no longer anything around the track. It just kept going. So Roland decides, okay, we'll walk. And Jake goes out in front of him, and they're just balancing across this thing. It looks terrifying by the description. And Roland's thinking to himself, we're acrobats. Look, mother, no net. I'm flying. The track was very weak, very rusty. Roland reasoned in his mind that it was the open air in front of them. Like, open air is the friend of corruption. It's contributing to, like, the air in the water is contributing to the rust. So they're walking. Jake comes across a hole in the track. He makes it across, but only just. Like, he wasn't expecting the hole, so it almost, like, made him fall.
Because it's still probably very dark in here as well.
Yeah.
Even in spite of the fact that they have these kind of, like, phosphorus-esque looking lights that we're seeing.
They have phosphorant lights behind them, and they have sunlight in front of them. So Jake crosses this hole, and then he tells Roland about it, and he says, Simon says, take one giant step. Roland knew this game as Mother says, so he goes across it, and Jake jokes, go back, you forgot to say, may I? And Roland's like, begging your pardon, but I think not. And so then Roland, he gets this vision of what it would be like to fall here.
Yeah.
And it was very vivid description. Like, he was foreseeing his own death. And then in front of him, Jake says that 3 of the rail ties were gone. So he leaps ahead and, like, lands, like, torso leading on the rail and just kind of, like, hugs it. And he starts becoming frantic again, and he's like, don't come over here, go away, go back. And Roland takes just, like, one big step over this gap, and he's like, no, go away, you're gonna kill me. And Roland's like, for the love of the man Jesus, walk. This thing is going to fall down if we just stand here. So Jake moves again, and then there's about 30 yards left, and this is when things go to shit.
Yep.
So the man in black appears at the light at the end of the tunnel, and he's like, hello, boys! And then he starts laughing, and I think that's why the railway started to collapse. I think his laughing... The narrative doesn't say, but I think his laughing was some kind of spell that was making it collapse. And so Jake slipped. He reaches out a hand and he catches part of the track, and he's like, Roland, help me. But the man in black said that if Roland didn't come right now, he would never catch him. And so Roland, in this moment, he's frozen with indecision. And he goes to reach for Jake, and the man in black's like, then I shall leave you. And Roland's like, no, you shall not. And he just books it, runs right past Jake, makes it to the end, and then the whole track collapses behind him. And below him, Jake's like, go then. There are other worlds than these. And he didn't scream.
Yeah.
He just fell.
Which is just so real. Like, what a real baller way to go out. Like, you know what? There are other worlds than these.
There are
Deuces.
other worlds than these.
Something that I found very interesting in this section, too, is that Roland's response to the man in black is to pull out the jawbone.
Yeah.
But the text specifically says that it's not there.
Yeah.
It doesn't describe where it was lost, but it just says it was lost at one point. Because the last time we've really seen it be used was whenever he gave it to Jake. And what chapter was that?
That was in chapter 3.
Was that chapter 3? Okay.
The last time the jawbone was really directly referenced was when he gave it to Jake to potentially use if the Oracle started messing with him again.
Yeah.
I don't remember if it said they took the jawbone with them at that point or not.
Yeah.
If they did take it with them at that point, I mean, it's entirely possible they lost it in their encounter with the slow mutants.
Yeah, that's true.
You know? Like, it wouldn't have been like he'd have been in a position to figure out where the hell that thing was. Especially in a moving handcart.
True.
So, anyways, in this moment, Roland is at his lowest. The way the narrative talks about this next moment is very interesting. It talks about how he knew that his soul would be chipped away more beyond this, but this moment would always be with him. And it talks about how he would fuck as many women and kill as many people as he needed to bury this memory, but it would always be there. And then the chapter ends with the man in black before Roland, like right as he steps out.
Mm-hmm.
And he pulls down his hood and he's like, so, not an end, but the end of the beginning, eh? Mm-hmm. You progress, Gunslinger, you progress. Oh, how I admire you. And Roland just whips out his guns, fires all 12 shots at him. Doesn't hit him. None of them hit. And the man taunts him more, and he's like, you kill me no more than you kill yourself. And then he's just like, come, Roland, mother, may I? Yes, you may. Come. And he did. He did follow.
Yeah.
And that's that chapter.
It's a real bummer.
It's a major
the most succinct way to describe that.
Yeah.
That subchapter. I'm just like, Roland, could he have potentially saved him? I feel like, yeah, but did Roland just decide to say, I mean, the prophecy's here. Like, do I just follow it through and say this is the moment and when I sacrifice Jake? Because part of me feels like Roland still could have turned around.
I think
and saved Jake. But then I think he just feared letting the man in black go.
So I was talking to my wife about this a little bit. Mm-hmm. She didn't read the story, but I was talking to her about the nature of this chase with the man in black. Mm-hmm. And she was like, the man in black is the devil.
Mm-hmm.
So I think through that lens, it wasn't a matter of like, oh, I'll just take 10 seconds to help this kid up and then keep going and I'll catch up with the man in black. I think it was, if I save this kid, the man in black is going to magically disappear. The man in black is choosing to stay, but only if I let Jake die.
Mm-hmm. Like, really challenging Roland
because, I mean,
in this
really,
moment.
Like, let's think about it. It wouldn't have taken that long for him to save the kid.
No, not a single bit.
No. It wouldn't have taken hardly any time at all. He probably, very likely, could have saved both of them. But he was so singular in his drive to get to the man in black.
Because it's been countless number of years that Roland has been chasing the man in black and pursuing him, and he is in such close proximity to him here. It's like, well, what's more important in this moment? You know, continuing to go after what I've been doing for all this time, or caring for this child that I love? And that's challenging, and he decides to go with the darker of the two options.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I suppose, in a sense, is exactly what the man in black wanted to do.
Yeah, give him love and take it away.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think that it is, if not directly stated, it is implied earlier in this chapter. Like, you remember that moment where he was thinking about where he grew up and what it looked like when he left it? Like, how it described mutants in the kitchen and how many weeds had grown up in the courtyard and just like all of this decay in such a short span of time, and how as I recall, that last day that he was there and he left was the day that he went after the man in black.
Yeah.
So he's been going after this guy since he was 19. And we don't know how old he is, but I think it's safe to say that he's near middle-aged, if not middle-aged.
Yeah.
You know?
So if you were to describe how many poops that would be as a metric of time.
Oh, I don't know, at least 20.
Wow. Boy, oh boy. Roland is the most irregular man I've ever heard of in my life, and dear God. That's incredible.
Yeah.
But yeah, really very, very dark end to chapter 4.
So now we get into chapter 5, which is called The Gunslinger and the Man in Black. This is a very interesting chapter. And I really wonder about someone that decided to pick up that specific issue of science fiction and fantasy to read this story first. Like, how confused must that guy have been?
Yeah, it's like, reading this is probably what Roland felt like when he dropped some mescaline. That's all I can think.
So, in the first subchapter, the Gunslinger and the Man in Black make camp.
Mm-hmm.
The Man in Black leads Roland to a Golgotha,
mm-hmm.
which is a outright biblical thing.
Yeah.
This Golgotha is described as being a place covered in skulls of dead creatures.
Mm-hmm.
So the Man in Black sits, and he's like, "Get us some wood, it's cold." And Roland's like, "I'll kill you."
With how we've learned all these things about Roland, like that tracks. There's a reason his dad was just insulting him, being a little like, "Bro, you're kind of slow." Like, I mean, that's okay. And Roland's like, "I'll kill you.
I'll kill you."
Just to the point.
Man in Black's like, "Nuh-uh, you can't. Now go get us some wood."
Mm-hmm.
So Roland goes and gets some wood. And it takes a while because most of the wood was ironwood,
mm-hmm.
which I interpret to mean it was petrified.
Yeah.
So eventually he found enough suitable sticks and brought them back. And so the Man in Black made like a double chimney out of the sticks.
Mm-hmm.
And then he used magic to light the fire. It was described as him making like the hand gesture that those guys from Kiss make,
mm-hmm.
like when they stick their tongue through it. Like
yeah.
just index and pinky finger out. And he just points his hand at the wood, and it catches fire. And then he's like, "I have matches, but I thought you'd want to see some magic."
Just being such an absolute dick
yeah.
to Roland.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I think he already is very aware that Roland understands how he's going to lose this fight if he really tries to take it.
Yeah.
I mean, Roland, he's already demonstrated that he's such an excellent shot.
Yeah.
And yet 15 shots at this point, because he fired 3 outside of the mountain and 12, and they all missed.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Roland is very aware. It's like, yeah, I'll follow. Fine, I'll collect some firewood, man.
Yeah. So then the Man in Black just pulls a rabbit out of his sleeve, a skinned one, just like he did with Zoltan in the first chapter.
Maybe that's why Jake was able to smell the Man in Black, because he just keeps rabbits up his shirt. And
so yeah, he just tosses this rabbit down in the dirt, and he's like, "Cook that." And so Roland does, and then when it's done, he gives the whole spit to the Man in Black, and then just eats some jerky.
Mm-hmm.
And the Man in Black's like, "That is a pointless gesture." And he's like, "Nah, I'm not eating your meat." And he's like, "You got a problem with enchanted meat?" And he's like, "Uh-huh, I do." And he starts eating his jerky, and it talks about how he does not like the jerky, like, because he's got blisters in his mouth from lack of vitamins,
mm-hmm.
and it's salty, and it's like, burning in those cuts.
Mm-hmm.
And then the sun starts to set, and the man said that they wouldn't see another sunrise for what may seem a long time.
Yeah.
And Roland's like, "It doesn't matter now."
Something I found really interesting in this subchapter is that the Man in Black pulls down his hood and reveals his visage to Roland. And
Yeah.
Roland specifically says, quote, "I expected an older man." And the Man in Black says, "Why? I am nearly immortal, as are you, Roland. For now, at least." It's like, that's okay. Interesting.
What do you think that means?
Ooh, like, part of me feels like Roland is special in some way.
Yeah.
That he's been blessed with immortality for some bizarre reason, or maybe the Man in Black just happened to select Roland.
Maybe. I need to be careful how I phrase this because of what I do already know. So all I'm going to say is, we are in a world that is moving on and where time is funny. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe the influence of the Dark Tower itself is keeping people immortal?
Maybe.
Is it everybody who's immortal in this universe? Because, I mean, they discuss that. But they do discuss how the one gentleman in Tull who died due to just consistently chewing on devil weed.
Yeah.
Their death does exist in this universe, then, by consequence, because he's able to kill everybody in Tull. Maybe people don't die of age. Maybe everybody's age is frozen as to where it is.
Maybe. I don't know.
Not sure.
So then we get into subchapter 2, which is how the Man in Black told the Gunslinger his future.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a very important subchapter to examine, I feel, because of the nature of it. Like, he does a tarot reading.
Mm-hmm.
He draws 7 cards. He tells the Man in Black that these are tarot cards, and some of them are cards of his own design.
Mm-hmm.
And then he tells Roland that he is the world's last adventurer, yet you have no idea how close you stand to the tower now as you resume your quest. And Roland's like, what do you mean resume? I never left off.
Mm-hmm.
And the Man in Black just laughs. So what do you think he meant by that?
Oof. Which section in particular?
When he's talking about resuming Roland's quest and how Roland's confused about that. Because I'll remind you, the subtitle of this book is Resumption.
I mean, we've had discussion of Roland's childhood friends. We have talk of Susan as well. And even within that subchapter, there's discussion that Susan yells at Roland saying the boy or the child.
Roland the boy.
Yeah. And so is it like, was Roland's quest involved with some other child somehow? And maybe the Man in Black caused all of this damage. And that was originally Roland's quest. And now he's going on a path of revengeance, perhaps.
Yeah. Maybe.
Not sure.
Well, anyways, let's get into the tarot reading itself. So the first card was the Hanged Man. Yet here, in conjunction with nothing else, it signifies strength, not death. You, Gunslinger, are the Hanged Man, plodding ever onward toward your goal over the pits of Na'ar. You've already dropped 1 co-traveler into that pit, have you not?
Yeah. Oof. R.I.P. Jake.
The second card was the Sailor. Note the clear brow, the hairless cheeks, the wounded eyes. He drowns, Gunslinger, and no one throws out the line. The boy Jake.
Mm-hmm.
The third card was the Prisoner. It was a picture of a young man with a baboon on his back, holding a whip. All the Man in Black said about this guy was, a trifle upsetting, isn't he? So, we know that the first of 3 is going to be someone subjected to a demon called heroin. I find it interesting that, with that in mind, that the Prisoner has a baboon on his back. Like a real monkey on his back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe in this world, for some reason, they're like, yeah, no, I did. That baboon is named Heroin. You know?
Oh, you're taking that literally.
Not actually, but.
So the fourth card was the Lady of the Shadows. And he says, does she look two-faced to you, Gunslinger? She is. 2 faces, at least. She broke the blue plate. And the Gunslinger's like, what does that mean? And the Man in Black's like, I don't know. And this, at least, the Gunslinger was sure was true. And
which is so intriguing, because, I mean, Homie's pulling out these cards and being like, oh, yeah, so this is your fate. And some of them he seems to know information about, but then some of them he doesn't?
Right. The 5th card was Death, yet not for you. Which is interesting, because the Oracle said nearly the same thing. The 6th card was the Tower, which needed no explanation. Roland looked at what had been set down already. His card, the first one, was in the center of the other 4, which made a square or a diamond. The Man in Black covered his card with the Tower, but he would not explain what that meant. The 7th card was Life, but not for you. Roland asked where that went in the pattern, and the Man in Black was like, I won't tell you. I don't know. I'm not the villain, dude. I'm just his emissary. And then tossed the card of Life into the fire. Then the Man in Black told Roland to go to sleep, perchance to dream and that sort of thing. And then Roland was like, well, maybe I'll punch you to death instead. And so then he leaps over the fire, and the Man in Black laughs and does some weird magic thing that makes him, quote, swell in Roland's vision and retreat down a long and echoing corridor. The world filled with the sound of sardonic laughter. He was falling, dying, sleeping. He dreamed. So the next subchapter is what Roland dreamt of. Do you want to field that one, Jacques?
Oh, my lord. This one is probably where that's what I was referring to whenever we started this chapter, where reading this would be as if you're like, oh, I just read what LSD is. That's cool. Huh. The Man in Black shows Roland effectively just the universe and the intricacy of it and kind of the zoom out of it, and demonstrates Roland's insignificance in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
And that's the simplest way to put it. It's a rather lengthy subchapter in relation to the rest of them for this. And Roland begins screaming out. He's like, oh, let there be light, please. Like, I want light here to...
No, not quite.
Oh, it's the other way around.
So what happened is the Man in Black was saying, let there be light, but it was so bright and intense. Roland is like, no more, no more. And the Man in Black is like, then call off. Abandon your quest for the tower and try to save what's left of your soul. And Roland's like, never. Then let there be light. So the next subchapter, the gunslinger wakes up and the men talk some more. So when he wakes, he's some distance from the Man in Black who's eating the last of his rabbit. And he's like, come on over here, gunslinger. I don't like you so close. You talk in your sleep.
Like, everybody's just hating on this poor guy. Like, his dad, the dude who fucks his mom, like, his teacher, now the villain is just all like, yeah, man, you suck. Like, you smell, you talk in your sleep. Like...
So the Man in Black congratulates Roland for surviving the vision. He said that if he had shown that same vision to Roland's father, he'd have been left drooling. Roland just asked what it was that he had been shown, and the Man in Black simply says, the universe. Roland didn't know that word, which fascinates me.
Yeah.
Just like, oh my God, you know so much, and yet you know so little.
Like atomic slugs? Absolutely. Yeah. Like, I get atoms. What the hell's a universe? What are you talking about?
Right. So the Man in Black tells Roland that he won't have the tower, that it will kill him half a world away. Roland said the man knew nothing of him. The Man in Black replies that he was Martin and told of what all he had done as Martin, made his father, then broke him, bent his mother, though she didn't break. Notably, he said, I am the furthest minion of what now rules the Dark Tower, and Earth has been given into that Red King's hand. He would not explain what he meant by that, instead saying, you'll learn more than you cared to if you press on. What hurt you once will hurt you twice. This is not the beginning, but the beginning's end. You'd do well to remember that. But you never do. Roland didn't understand. The Man in Black says, no, you don't. You never did. You never will. You have no imagination. You're blind that way. Which, again, reminds me of that line of Algy's. You have such a trivial nature. Just like, you don't get it. You don't know what's going on. So, what do you make of that?
This all implies that Roland has been through this before and doesn't recall it.
Yeah.
Something has occurred in the past. It's been repetitive.
Yeah.
And the Man in Black at this point is kind of just making fun of him and being like, yeah, you're too thick, bro. You don't remember that you're continuing to go through this cycle.
Yeah.
And especially being that the Man in Black admits at this point, he's like, yeah, I'm the lowest of the lackeys when it comes to the guy who's actually in charge of the Dark Tower. And you don't want to go down this path. Like, to roughly quote it again, as to what you said, what hurt you once will hurt you twice. So Roland's been through this, and even the lowest lackey seems to be scared of actually who's in charge of the Dark Tower.
Yeah. So the gunslinger tells the Man in Black that at the end of the vision, he saw white light and then a single purple blade of grass. And compared to that blade, he was infinitesimally tiny.
Mm-hmm.
The man in black asked if he was certain, and Roland was. So the man in black was like, hear me now, Gunslinger. Would you hear me? And the Gunslinger's like, I would. And so then the Gunslinger spoke. The next subchapter is about what the man in black said to him in this moment. So he explains to the Gunslinger a few things. First, he starts telling him some history of the Gunslinger's world. He says 100 generations ago, mankind had achieved the height of their knowledge. They had conquered cancer, nearly attained immortality, walked on the moon, and I love it at this point. The Gunslinger's like, I don't believe that.
That's the thing. He's all like, yeah, absolutely not. No. Like, we can't walk on that thing up there.
And the man in black just smiles and he's like, you needn't believe me. But he goes on. He's just like, what if our universe was merely an atom in a blade of grass? What if the world was moving on because that blade of grass was cut and dying? We say that the world is moving on. What if it's more accurate to say that the world is drying up? And then he says, what if every grain of sand in the Mohaine Desert contained 1 billion universes? He says, size encompasses life, and the tower encompasses size. And then he says, suppose that all worlds, all universes met in a single nexus, a single pylon, a tower, and within it, a stairway, perhaps rising to the Godhead itself. Would you dare climb to the top, Gunslinger? Could it be that somewhere above all of endless reality there exists a room? You dare not. Ooh. And that repeats in his mind, in the Gunslinger's mind. You dare not. And that's how that subchapter ends. So what do you make of that? And is there anything that I left out that you want to mention here?
I don't think so. I mean, I think the realities are collapsing in on themselves. And then the Dark Tower itself is perhaps the nexus of that.
Yeah.
You know, it's explicitly being said by the man in black here that that's what's happening.
So do you think that, because he says kind of two things here. He's like, what if our universe is just an atom in a blade of grass? And then he says, what if the Dark Tower is the center of everything? So my question to you is one of these things true? Is the other thing true? Or is both things true?
I feel like both of them are true in this circumstance.
Yeah?
What I do find, and now that you bring that up, the man in black actually mentions that, quote, North Central Positronics. So what was labeled on that water pump back whenever Roland found it in the lean-to, whenever he first met Jake.
Yeah.
And Roland felt uncomfortable reading that name, but we never really got an understanding as to why. But the man in black is the one who says it was North Central Positronics who led the way in regards of making it so humanity could walk on the moon and cure cancer and do all of these incredible, wonderful facts.
Mega corporation.
Yeah, exactly. And so why does Roland feel this discomfort towards it? Well, this is kind of hinting towards why.
Yeah. It's got something to do with the tower.
Yeah, and perhaps why all these realities are collapsing in on themselves.
So the man in black says, you dare not. And the Gunslinger replies, someone had dared.
Oof.
Maybe God. Maybe the king the man in black spoke of. You know, the Crimson King. So he asks the man in black if the room at the top of the tower was empty. The man in black said he didn't know. He dared not ask. He thought it unwise because he feared an accounting if he knew. So this subchapter ends with Roland telling the man in black that he was cold because the fire was dying. And so the man in black's just like, build it up yourself. It's the butler's night off. So then we get into subchapter 7. How the Gunslinger and the man in black spoke as equals. Right? So the Gunslinger nodded off. And when he woke, the man in black was staring at him. And Roland got surly about it. And the man in black suggested now that they speak the truth to each other, no more lies. And Roland's like, I thought that's what we were doing. I thought we were speaking the truth. And he's like, no, let us speak together truthfully as equals. And Roland's like, all right, well, then I won't waste your time. Let's speak the truth. Even though, and the narrative says, like, he had done nothing less. Like, like Roland himself had been speaking the truth this whole time. And so here in this moment, the man in black is just giving him the opportunity to ask his questions. Ask whatever it is he wants to ask. And so Roland's like, why hasn't the sun risen? And the man in black's like, the sun will not rise until we're done talking. I don't know how long that'll be.
Yeah.
And so then Roland asks him about the man in black's king. And the man in black says that he'd never met the king, but the king came to him in dreams. He gave the man in black his duty and promised him a reward centuries ago, giving him tasks over the ages. He said Roland was his apotheosis, his climax. He also said that before Roland meets the king, he must meet the ageless stranger. And Roland's like, does this stranger have a name? And the man in black says, Legion. So then Roland asks if the stranger is a minion of the tower. And he says, Yar, he darkles, he tinks. He is in all times, yet there is one greater than he. And Roland's like, who? And the man in black won't answer. And he's like, ask me no more. I don't know. I won't speak of things in Endworld. It's tantamount to ruining one's soul. And so Roland's like, will I succeed? Will I make it to the Dark Tower? And the man in black says, if I answered that question, Gunslinger, you'd kill me. So what do you make of that answer before we get to what Roland says next?
Yeah. It's a very intense response. You know,
Yeah.
to be like, if I informed you of that, you would kill me. Because the man in black clearly has a purpose here.
Yeah.
As to guide Roland to what he needs to do. And in this moment, I feel like the man in black, his purpose is rapidly coming to an end. And that's why all of a sudden he decides to speak to Roland as equals. But he still values his life. And he's like, well, if you know what's up, then like my purpose is done and you'll just murder me.
Yeah. So Roland replies, I ought to kill you. You need killing. And he puts his hands on his guns, and the man in black says, those do not open doors, Gunslinger. Those only close them forever. Which I think is very poetic.
Right? Yeah.
And so Roland's finally like, where must I go? And the man in black told him, go west to the sea. And then he revealed that when Martin left Gilead, that there was another man who dressed as a monk. And then Roland remembered him. Walter. And then he realized the man in black never left. He only changed. He's a shapeshifter.
Oh.
Yeah. So then, the man in black produces fresh tobacco. Roland could resist the rabbit before, but he couldn't resist the tobacco.
He likes his drugs. Like,
yeah.
That's really what it is.
Yeah, so he rolls 2 cigarettes with fresh leaves, and he gives one to the man in black, and they both smoke. And the man in black said, is it good? And Roland's like, it is. And the man in black's like, enjoy it, for it's probably the last smoke you're going to have in a very long time.
Damn.
And then the man in black talked some more. And I thought this was interesting, right? It says that this part went on and on and on, and the man in black said so much to Roland that night, but little of it stuck. What stuck was the last of what the man in black said, which was he told Roland again that he must go 20 miles west to the sea, and there he would be given the power of drawing. And then he clarifies, and I love the way he clarifies, because he's such a shit. He's like, that's not really the right word. Like, nobody's giving you anything. Nobody wants to invest power in you. It is simply something that is within you. It's an inherent thing that you can do, but you must be told about it. And so when Roland is told this, he draws the connection between the drawing and the 3. And he's like, I'm going to draw 3. And the man in black says, yep. And that's when the fun will begin. But by then I'll be long gone. And so then Roland felt compelled to ask if the man in black had anything else to say. And the man in black did. He said, let there be light. And there was light, and the light was good.
Ooh. And I love how it wraps up and it says, and this time the light was good.
Yeah.
So maybe Roland was just in a few subchapters ago exposed just this overpowering light that he's like, please stop. I'm like, this is too painful.
But this is good light.
This is good light.
This is good light. And so then we get the final subchapter, which is it's so interesting how this book ends. The narrative literally says here that he woke up and found himself 10 years older.
Mm-hmm.
His black hair was thinner and gray at the temples. The lines in his face were deeper, his skin was rougher, and the man in black was just a smiling skeleton in black robes.
Mm-hmm.
Roland suspected that this was a trick, that the man in black was still out there somewhere. But he still took the man in black's jawbone to replace the one that he lost. And so then he started going west. And as he started going, he realized a huge chapter of his life was over. And he just says out loud to nobody in particular, he said, "I loved you, Jake." And then he kept going.
Yeah.
He went about 20 miles west until he reached the sea. And when he got there, the sun was setting. And so he just laid on the beach to wait for the time of the drawing. And he dreamt of the dark tower, the nexus of time, the nexus of size, and of some unimaginable final battle that might happen there. And that's how the book ends.
Yeah.
So...
What an esoteric way to end it.
Yeah.
Like...
So this chapter felt very different from the rest of the book.
Oh, yeah.
Can you speak to how?
I mean, even in the last chapter that we just discussed, chapter 4, you were talking about how Roland realizes he can't turn back to save Jake and, save Jake's life. And you went into very particular detail of like how Roland was suffering from sunstroke. He had that once, the lack of food that they would have had available. They would have to live on the mountain.
Yeah.
But then we get into this chapter and all of a sudden, like, we get into these cosmic explorations and... the sun no longer rises, which demonstrates the power that the Man in Black has, and the discussions that the Man in Black seems to value his own life, but then is also here to kind of very much so deliver exposition to Roland and tell him like this is what's going on. Like you're a key component in this, man. Like, and your next step is to go and fulfill this prophecy. I mean, homie pulls out the tarot cards, demonstrates that there are portions of it, and yet somehow life and death don't correlate and have nothing to do with Roland. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, Roland wakes up and it's 10 years later. And, in spite of the fact that homie probably didn't eat, it's just like the magical component of this story comes into such a bigger play here. Yeah. Where it has the capability of keeping somebody alive. And also, I guess, relatively well sunscreened, for 10 years. I mean, like, he still aged.
No, it said his skin was rougher.
Yeah, he still aged. Not good sunscreen then. Only 10 SPF. I really should, Man in Black didn't know enough spells, I guess. Yeah. Like, he spent too much time storing rabbits up his sleeves.
Yeah. So, we finished the book.
Yeah.
So now is the time to really just talk about the book as a whole. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts?
It does very much feel that definitely feels like multiple short stories all put into one. Yeah. Where, and that's not a bad thing necessarily, but the parts do feel very distinct from one another. Mm-hmm. Where it's...
The first chapter especially.
Yeah. That feels very well fleshed out. It feels like there's an underlying story going throughout that. But then as we continued on with the other chapters, it seems like they're like extended slice of life sections, and in particular whenever they're stuck in the mountain, I don't know if King knew what to do with that in order to flesh it out. I mean, he throws in the slow mutants at one point, but I mean, like I joked, one entire subchapter is just nothing really happened for 3 days and that's it. Yeah. And so it felt as if he had these distinct ideas in his head, but then combining them all into one book, being that he wrote them likely at separate times, combining them all would probably be very challenging. There's an underlying narrative throughout it, but I imagine if you're allowing yourself that much time in between each individual section, that will inevitably make it feel very distinct from one another.
Yeah. So in the foreword, what he says about it is... I never really looked at the work as a whole until I'd finished Volume 7, The Dark Tower. When I looked back at the first volume, which you now hold in your hands, 3 obvious truths presented themselves. The first was that The Gunslinger had been written by a very young man and had all the problems of a very young man's book. The second was that it contained a great many errors and false starts, particularly in light of the volumes that followed. One example of this will probably serve for all. In the previously issued text of the Gunslinger, Farson is the name of a town. In later volumes, it somehow became the name of a man, the rebel John Farson, who engineers the fall of Gilead, the city-state where Roland spends his childhood. The third problem was that the Gunslinger did not even sound like the later books. It was, frankly, rather difficult to read. All too often, I heard myself apologizing for it and telling people that if they persevered, they would find the story really found its voice in the drawing of the three.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So he's aware of some of the faults in regards of how he constructed this book.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I necessarily agree with him in regards of his interpretation that most readers will begin to really get into the book whenever it gets to the drawing of the three.
Well, he goes on to say, before I close, I should say a word about the younger man who dared to write this book. That young man had been exposed to far too many writing seminars and had grown far too used to the ideas those seminars promulgate, that one is writing for other people rather than oneself. That language is more important than story. That ambiguity is to be preferred over clarity and simplicity, which are usually signs of a thick and literal mind. As a result, I was not surprised to find a high degree of pretension in Roland's debut appearance, not to mention what seemed like thousands of unnecessary adverbs. I removed as much of this hollow blather as I could, and do not regret a single cut made in that regard. In other places, invariably those where I'd been seduced into forgetting the writing seminar ideas by some particularly entrancing piece of story, I was able to let the writing almost entirely alone, save for the usual bits of revision any writer needs to do. As I have pointed out in another context, only God gets it right the first time. So, you disagree, but also, though, you're reading the version that he is okay with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which is kind of hysterical, because one of my complaints with Stephen King's early writing is, man, homie just pulled out every possible adverb that he can. And he's even aware of it in this, very scathing review of his early work, where, he said, he removed like thousands of unnecessary adverbs when it comes to describing his characters, which is, that is very much what I'm familiar with his early books.
I'm willing to bet, because you were commenting on this. You were like, I'm really surprised how he's, actually getting on with it.
Yeah.
I wonder how you would feel about an original edition of this book if you read it.
I would have been like Court, having David on my face and just taking a stick and beating myself with it. That's what I would have been doing. Just absolutely over it.
Yeah.
But he also kind of hints at it too when he's discussing that, quote, ambiguity is to be preferred over clarity and simplicity, where when he starts talking about the three fates, I understand that he's setting up likely things for the future sequels, but it almost feels as if he's relying too heavily on the idea of prophecy, which I know more modern writers tend to not necessarily like doing that. I mean, where prophecy is viewed as, it's more fun to maybe set up prophecy, but then step away from it in spite of that and have your characters rebel against prophecy or any sort of prophetic storytelling-based devices, where like the tarot cards, for example. I mean, those, it's going to be interesting to read through the rest of this series and kind of come back to those tarot cards and be like, oh, wait, is that what that's supposed to be?
Yeah.
And so I understand the desire to do that. And then it's a payoff that's going to take a while to get there. And it feels like these last three chapters in particular began to rely on that, and incredibly much so. The very last one relied on that, of just setting up.
Yeah. I'm very excited to get to the next book.
Yeah.
So the next book was written, I think I said this in a prior episode. The next book was written at a point in time in King's life where he had found his voice as a writer.
Mm-hmm.
And he is, it shows. And it's very good. It's very fun. It feels like reading an action movie. it's much less pretentious
Mhm.
in the way the prose goes.
Yeah.
It feels much more like some of King's later works, like when he had attained that fame,
Mm-hmm.
like the way that he started writing at that point. It's very good, very fun.
That's awesome.
I've ordered my next copy of the series. It's in the mail, and I'm excited to read it with you.
Sweet, yeah. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. And you need to finish The Stand.
Oh God, yeah, I gotta finish this down. I'm halfway through it. It's the extended version, and oof, boy, oh boy, yeah, homie, he did not take his advice early on enough. Where he's like, "What if I just added like 20 extra adverbs? Is that cool?"
Yeah.
And we're here, but something I came across recently that is in relation to what he's talking about, where he relied too heavily on these writing seminars, is I wish I could quote where I roughly heard this from, but somebody pointed out that in most people's creative journeys, they're hesitant to begin because they feel like they're going to be copying too many people. But that's how you start in most creative endeavors. That, you know, if it's like a writing style, or if you're producing music, you typically start by mimicking those that you like and those that you find interest in, and eventually by doing that you find your own voice. And it seems like he's aware of that.
When he was 19, he was very heavily inspired by Lord of the Rings.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to write a story inspired by Lord of the Rings, but he knew that if he started then, he would just tell that story again. So he waited.
Which is a very smart way to do it.
Alright, somebody's just blaring music, so we're gonna go ahead and wrap up, I guess. Alright. Hey, thanks for listening, guys.
Yeah, thank you guys.
We'll catch you later. Bye.